Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 201. I'm Victoria Gallagher, the Law of Attraction hypnotist, #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. And I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores today. today. I am here with my co-host, comedy hypnotist, Jim Kellner. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Victoria. As a reminder, go download the app. Really, I listen to that thing all the time. It's a great app.
Yeah, it is too. Amazing. And pretty soon I'll be able to change that over 500. It'll definitely be more and more sessions coming soon.
Nice. It's pretty too. That's what I like about it. It's pretty. It's very pretty. I've seen some other apps out there not pretty, but yours is so pretty.
You know, it's funny. Thank you so much. Because when I first got it designed to be that way, it was like a couple of years ago. What happens is this like law of familiarity. I think when you look at something so frequently, it starts to like, I don't know, it kind of like loses its attractiveness or something. It starts to seem a little old. I don't know. Does that ever?
Oh yeah. I get it. Sure.
Yeah.
Like being married.
I
Kidding, honey.
I had a feeling that was going to come up. But I definitely, I see a potential redesign in coming up in the future here.
I would never redesign my wife, by the way, in case she's watching.
Yes, exactly. Your wife is beautiful. I've seen pictures.
Adorable.
Yeah. And I understand she's taking on some new paintings and creativity.
Yeah, she really loves it. Yeah, I think she could just spend her whole day just painting. She loves it.
I love it. I was, our little Hypno Thoughts 10-10-10 challenge. And, one of the things that kind of reminded me, I used to do a lot of painting a couple of years ago. And I saw the thing that you bought for your wife to paint on. That looks amazing. That's so nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
So today we're going to be talking about this law that I've never actually talked about on my show. I think I've talked about a little bit on my YouTube channel, which, by the way, you guys need to, if you're not watching this on YouTube already and you're just listening, you need to head over to my YouTube channel, which is Hip Talk, youtube.com/Hip Talk. And I do talk about, try to keep the show focused here on law of attraction, manifesting techniques. And then over on my YouTube channel, I just talk about different things. I like to give different audiences different experiences. And so,
Sure.
We do some little short meditations over there and affirmations and some techniques and explaining things. But anyway, so today we're going to be talking about the law of assumption. The law of assumption. Have you ever heard of this law, Jim?
Well, I'll tell you, I've not heard of it like that, although I know, I love the idea of it. Just assume it. That sounds great. Right?
It is. And it's so different in a way. It's a lot different from the practical law of attraction that I teach. This does, I think, get a little bit more into the woo-woo, but we're going to bring it in to some practical steps that you can use to practice, law of assumption. But, I don't know how I can do this episode without talking about how, like, what happens when you assume.
True. very true.
But in this case, we're gonna maybe change that up a little bit, because practicing the law of assumption, it can be, honestly, most people, when they talk about the law of assumption, a lot of the law of Neville Goddard fans out there, and people that talk about manifesting, they always talk about the good stuff. When you're practicing law of assumption, they talk about what good things can happen, and how how it's going to help you to manifest. But it can actually, just with any of these laws, it can go both ways.
I've listened to some of Neville Goddard stuff.
Oh, you
He's way
have?
back. He's way back,
Yes,
right?
he
Yeah,
is
actually,
way back.
on YouTube. I've heard some of his work on there. Yeah, I mean, we're talking like what, 1920s or so, earlier, or I don't know.
It's right about there, right about
Okay, yeah.
there. Yeah. And it's, to be honest, I had not really heard about or listened to much Neville Goddard until, I would say, maybe about 3 years ago is when I really kind of started diving in to his material a little bit. But I had not, and had I, had I listened to his stuff, I could have maybe gone in a whole different direction with how I approach law of attraction, because it's it's very different. His stuff is, most of it's, kind of based on the Bible and the way he interprets the Bible. And, I'm not like, I don't read the Bible, but I do like what he talks about. I do like the way, I just always feel good. I listen to him a lot on my walks and my hikes. And I don't know, the things that he says is just makes you feel so uplifted and so inspired, that like, wow, I mean, he really, really gets the buy-in on the whole premise of believing and imagining, and and it just really makes a lot of sense the way he articulates and the way he puts it.
Nice. So is it, I mean, so we don't have to throw away the law of attraction, right? I mean, they work together, or
They they do, they definitely, they're different approaches, they're different methods. So the law of assumption, as we talked about, Neville Goddard kind of came up with this phrase, and it's just the way that he taught that, the way that we create our desires is to assume, is just to just, you create this feeling inside of you that whatever you're wanting to attract, okay, you're not attracting it, it's already fulfilled. You've all, and it's more about, one of the things that I always say is that the law of attraction, it's not about attracting what you want, but it's attracting who you are.
Yeah.
It's attracting who you are. And so who you are is a person in the law of assumption. Who you are already possesses this thing. You just maybe haven't aligned with it yet, because like, if you believe that everything is energy, and energy can't be destroyed or created, it just can be changed, you're really changing and aligning your energy to line up with what already it exists for you.
That's an interesting take. Boy, it seems maybe a little bit harder to convince myself of this than maybe the law of attraction thing. Like
that's the thing. This is very advanced level manifestation technique. It's simple, but it's advanced, meaning it's like, you just assume it and you just believe it, right?
So yeah.
It's simple. It's simple to say that. Is it easy in theory to just believe and just make that assumption, like, well, I already have this. And that's, that's really what it comes down to, is it's the quicker way to manifest, but it's harder.
Okay.
It's harder to get yourself to believe and buy into that.
So tell me how. That's what I want to know. How do I convince myself, my doubting self?
Yeah, I mean that, so much of it, it really has to do with, I mean, think about any other assumption that you've made,
Okay.
about, like just say, like, imagine a person that you meet, and you
Hmm.
just assume that this person is like that. You have like sort of like a stereotype, almost like
Right.
a belief in
Yeah.
your mind.
Hmm.
And we have to, almost like get ourselves to that point by looking, maybe looking in our past, looking at evidence that shows us that what we already
Oh,
have. Yeah,
okay.
that what we already have, or that we're already on our way. Like when I look at, say, the evidence, that I'm going to get the number of subscribers, like I know
Right.
I don't have them right now.
Yeah.
But I can look at, the evidence of other apps out there that have that many
Mm.
subscribers, and
Yeah.
I can say, well, I can absolutely believe that that is happening, that that's already taking place, because there's evidence out there that shows that that is a real, that's a real thing. I can
Hmm.
also look at, like, I was literally looking at where I was a year ago, and I can see the growth of where I was a year ago and where I am today. And I can get myself to believe, based on that old evidence or that current evidence, that this thing, is happening. um so, and it's about like creating that
Hmm.
feeling that it's real. So how do you create that feeling?
Yeah. Good question. How? Tell, tell me.
So, and this is where a lot of, the work that you and I do,
Uh-huh.
really, really comes in, with hypnosis, and teaching your mind new tricks, new ways to, I mean, uh, let me put it back to you. So
Okay.
when you are on stage and you're
Hmm.
hypnotizing your group,
Yeah.
aren't you like putting them into a belief and an assumption that, like, what's one of the stage tricks that you do, like
Hmm.
on stage?
Yeah. I mean, like I will, like depending on the audience, I might make somebody think that they're Taylor Swift. And they jump up and
Taylor's,
sing
yeah.
every time. Every time the song plays, they jump up and sing and dance like Taylor Swift.
Yeah. And at that moment in time, they really believe that.
Yeah, they're convinced, totally, completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's
Hmm.
the thing.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing we do. So we go into a reverie, a hypnosis,
Mhm.
affirmations, but we'll do it, and then of course we'll wake from it, and we'll just go on about our merry way in
Yeah.
our life. So the difference between that situation and practicing the law of assumption is that when you wake up from your hypnosis, from your trance, from your visualization, you continue that process of walking around in that state of assumption, in that state of belief.
Mm.
So instead of just accepting that this is how much money I have in my bank account, and letting that convince you that, like, that's how much money you have, you continue with saying, I have, you just continue to believe and feel, and have the vision. You want to believe your vision more than reality, is really what I'm trying to get to. You want to believe your vision. You want to turn away from your outer world
Mhm.
and believe more on what is happening in your inner world.
That's it's interesting because having and I'm trying to remember exactly when I started getting really focused on this stuff. Really, um, and doing like my visualization, my or
Mhm.
imagination work. every day, twice a day. Try to do it twice a day, at least for 5 minutes. And I've had this experience where I'm driving on the freeway and I can imagine the feeling of being in the car that I assume I'll be driving.
Yep.
And I can see the vista with palm trees of the ocean as I come around this corner. And this is something, I get this feeling and I can feel it. And then I started wondering, do I even need that car or that vision if I could just keep that damn feeling with me all the time?
Well, isn't it true? I mean, that's the thing, is like what, the feeling ultimately, oh, I had a word that I was going to use and it was going to make me sound so intelligent.
Editor, cut this part out, insert the right word.
Yes, exactly. It collapses. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the feeling kind of collapses the time, because it ultimately transcends you from this moment into any moment that is actually happening.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's such a weird feeling, and I've been able to achieve that a few times. I mean, and it's really awesome. So, I mean, if you're out there and you're kind of wondering about this stuff, I would say even if I didn't get that car and that vista that I'm looking at, which isn't even that out of the realm of possibility. It's pretty easy, really, when I really think about it. But if you could just get that feeling, what do you even need everything else for, right? You just get the feeling.
It's so true. But the cool thing is that when you live in that feeling, you are ultimately creating that as your future, because it's that feeling that is driving you to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to take certain actions that you wouldn't take. You have to admit that if you didn't feel 100%, you didn't believe 100%, then you wouldn't take those actions. That is those feelings that make you, well, they not only make you act, but they make you aware of opportunities that you wouldn't normally be aware of.
I think that's so true. And I mean, this idea of belief, it's a great point you just made, because I'm thinking, like, if I didn't believe certain things, then when an opportunity comes to me, I wouldn't think that I was either ready for it or worthy of it, or I might not even notice it. I just let it go by because it's not for me.
Exactly.
Right? That's not for me. And it's some of this starts sounding a little bit like, like a term we might use in NLP, just the, like modeling or act as if, if you want to achieve something, act as if. Actually, it sounds exactly like it now that I think about it. It's like, act as if you have it, assume you have it. And how do you act now that you have it?
And it is interesting because so many of these techniques, I believe they do connect to a lot of techniques in NLP. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was kind of thinking like, well, what's really the difference between, assuming the wish is fulfilled right now, that you have it right now, and future pacing?
Yeah. Right.
Because when we do future pacing, we're ultimately kind of energetically time traveling and allowing ourselves to experience and be in that moment. Only this goes one step beyond that, where you're actually beyond that moment. You're in that moment that's after you've already manifested it. So like what happens next? What's happening next after you've already manifested this?
Right. So, and I don't even know. I mean, I stumbled into this by this feeling thing, by, by the imagination thing. Is that really the way to go about this? Are there other ways? Could I have speeded up the process? Could I make it more intense, or?
You can. So the way that you access this is, either is definitely through your imagination.
Okay.
So using your vivid imagination, feeling it, seeing it, hearing it, like just really being one with it, practicing being in that moment. But you can also begin to shift your thoughts by using what I like to refer to as thought restriction,
Hmm.
meaning to just begin to deny any of those doubts, so whenever you and you're going to, as when you're in this process, you're going to get these negative stories that you're
Mhm.
telling yourself. And so by like just refusing to entertain those negative thoughts, like I have the apps being rebuilt right now. And, anytime, because I've had these bad experiences in the past that come up
Mhm.
with, you know, not working out the right way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm just not even going to entertain that thought, and just immediately switching into this is this is happening, this is becoming my reality now. So you notice, anytime you notice that thought, you just like literally you've just got to, you're putting yourself almost like on a diet, like a mental diet,
Mm.
if you will, where you are only going to partake in this thought. And you've got to be persistent about, switching your thoughts anytime. And it's very similar to a person who just, is quitting smoking or going on a diet. I mean, yes, we use hypnosis to change and shift our mindset to to crave healthy foods, to um, do alternative behaviors outside of smoking. Well, it's the same thing with manifesting and aligning yourself with this person that you are becoming, who is in alignment with whatever it is that you want to create. It's shifting that mindset to believe that you are that person. And but just like occasionally you might think about that chocolate cake, right?
Mhm.
So what happens if you start thinking about the chocolate cake and you start to engage in having that chocolate cake?
Oh my God, that's law of attraction in action, right? You you
Exactly.
start thinking about it, you start wanting it, you start drooling, the more you think about it, the more you want it.
Exactly. And so, it's the same thing we crave, because our subconscious minds are trying to protect us and prevent us from changing, because
Mhm.
change is like the scariest thing that we could possibly do, because it
Right.
ultimately means that we're going to die. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
right. So that's why it's so easy for us to doubt and revert back to these doubtful feelings about things, is because it's really, in a way, it's like the subconscious mind trying to protect us. So we can rewire all that. We've got to rewire all that by just refusing to entertain. You can't entertain, if you're going to be on a diet, you can't entertain having chocolate cake, because eventually you're going to go there. The same way you can't entertain that I'm never going to be a millionaire. I'm never going to um, meet the woman or the man of my dreams. I'm never going to get into the best shape of my life, blah, blah, blah. Anytime you entertain those thoughts, you're going to start to go down this other law of assumption, and
Right.
you're going to assume that you can't have it. And
I'm not a
that's
millionaire, right?
right. And
Yeah.
because if you think about it, we don't have to practice the law of assumption. We're already practicing it.
Yeah.
We're
Uh,
already living according to what we assume. And I think, really honestly, that's like the best way to think about it, is to realize that everything you have right now is there by your assumption.
I think that's
You
such a great point. For better or worse, you're getting what you're putting out there.
Yeah, you're assuming that the sun is going to rise every morning.
Yeah.
And so it does. I mean, it probably would still rise, even if you didn't assume that. But you want
Depends who you talk to, I think,
you're assuming that your job is going to be there, every day for you. Assuming your bed, your husband, your cats, your whole life, the way it is right now. But the thing is that like we keep creating and recreating our life because what we're seeing and acting upon and feeling in our daily life is just recreating it being the exact same way tomorrow. So unless we change our assumptions, change what we believe, by holding the image, by holding the words, by holding the feelings, the image, the words, and the feelings, when we change those things, we're going to begin to change and create a new assumption about what is going to show up for us tomorrow. And we will bit by bit be reconstructing our future in the now, reconstructing that now.
I love the word that you used too, because you said entertain. You're entertaining because you know what? I think that in some way or another, I mean, entertainment doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. You could be entertained by a scary movie too, but we go down those. And I see this is one of the things that frustrates me. I used to be in a bunch of Facebook groups for the keto eating plan.
Yeah.
And these people would post these pictures of a chocolate cake and go, oh, I just wanted to take a minute to just think about, or they'd post, what are all those foods that you'd like to be eating? And I'm like, stop doing that. I mean, what are you doing? Why would you want to go down that and they come back? Well, I just want to live, vicariously. No, you're focusing on what you don't want.
Oh, exactly. Oh, that is such a good point. I mean, and they're, when you do entertain those thoughts, eventually they're going, and and it's interesting how it's so much easier for us to understand how it works in negative, like
right.
how it works in negative terms. So if we continue to put things that we want to have in a positive light and put like, say, we want to drink more water. Well, how can we see ourselves in a state of drinking more water? Well, we want to think about the benefits that water is going to create. Water is going to give us more energy. Water is going to make us cleaner. Water is going to help us live longer. It's going to help us feel better. It's going to help us look better, all of those things. So you want to be, seeing that instead of seeing the thing that, you're trying to get away from.
Yeah. So I mean, so there's that. That's got to be things that people are doing wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're focusing on. Same thing with posting those memes about how you can't find the right partner. All people are liars. All men are liars. All women are liars. Whatever, right? You're just kind of focusing on what you want. I mean, there's got to be other things we're doing wrong about this.
Sorry, I was getting a call from a telemarketer. I had to make sure that
I. No problem.
It literally said telemarketer on.
I love it. Not just could be scammer or whatever it is. I love it. Maybe that's the person there to offer you the $1 million check, though. I mean,
oh, it could be. It probably is.
Right.
Well, you know what? I will attract another.
That's right.
And I'll attract it another way.
So, I mean, that's got it. So I know that's getting in a lot of people's way.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a long time. Have you seen other things that are getting in our way?
I think the biggest thing that gets in people's way is they don't, number one, because they just automatically buy into that what I'm seeing right now in my reality is the truth. And so they have a hard time just being able to convince themselves that any other reality could be true. And, and so they're so convinced by what they see in their physical. It's like, it's still this way. It's still this way. Yeah. And so you have to just kind of be able to They're not able to just turn that off and turn inward and believe in something else. And, and I think it just takes a certain level of persistence, tenacity. That's, I think, one of the gifts that I have had is why I've been able to manifest. Like, I haven't manifested, and I think we're always manifesting. I think we're always in the process of manifesting at the next level, right? And so, but I think it's why I've been able to be as successful in manifesting everything I have up to this point, is because I have that persistence. I have that stick-to-itiveness. I have that tenacity. I don't ever give up. And another mistake I think that people have is that they make is putting certain time limits on it.
Hmm.
Like, this has to happen in 30 days. Well, what
Gotcha.
if it doesn't happen in 30 days?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that it can happen in 30 days, and it's great to have goals, but goals are targets, and sometimes you don't actually hit the target the first time. And so you have to retarget, and you have to look at what how can I make an adjustment? Do I need to adjust something? Do I need to think about this in another way? Do I need to kind of let go of the how things are going to happen? And, so, I mean, that's really about persistence and just getting yourself to turn away from your current reality and realize that, your reality can be whatever you want it to be. It really can. You can, I mean, our thoughts, our energy, our vibration is creating everything. And, it's just a matter of lining up with it, being it, and making that choice, making that decision, and then getting your own mind to buy into it. And once you've bought into it, it's done. You're just going through the motions.
Yeah. And, so something I would like to point out to people too, because when I'm doing hypnotherapy with people, sometimes when talk about, future pacing and those kinds of things, I'll have clients that'll say things like, well, I can't imagine, or I don't imagine very well.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that that's like anything else. You get better at it, and also, like, no matter how long it takes, you can still get that good feeling every day. Because, when I first started trying to do this, to really, doing my visualization, and I'm not getting enough senses. When I do it for myself, when I do it with clients, I get all the senses, but like the smell thing, I should be smelling the ocean as I'm driving by. But, when I'm driving by, Pismo Beach over here in my red Jeep, it feels amazing. But it didn't start that way. It took a long time where I could actually see more of the details and figure out exactly where I was and which Jeep I'm driving. There's so many things, but now I've got it just locked in. Right now I just got to chill thinking about about driving down, down so you're going to feel great, even if it takes longer than you hope for. So, maybe you want to do it even more often, like you're watching a movie, right? That's not real. The movie's not real, but we still feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you kind of you want to do it in almost like all day long. It's like you're just living in this new story, ultimately.
Right.
That's what, when I attracted my husband many years ago, and we were in our little split up moment where he told me he didn't ever want to get married. And so, and again, I was not imagining him, but I was imagining this new person, just this vague idea of a person in my mind. But every day I would just sort of imagine I'm spending the day with him. And I was just sort of like living in, oh, what are we going to do now? And I would just like live my life as if he was already there, and we were like dating, and this fairy tale person in my mind, sometimes I would close my eyes and I would get really deep into the visualization, but then the rest of the day I was just sort of like, I kind of almost like talk to him like he's almost my imaginary and like literally within
Wow.
less than 90 days is when my now husband, proposed to me. And
Wow.
so, I mean, this stuff really, it absolutely works. It just, you have to just assume it, assume it. Another word for that is to believe it. You can get to that belief so much easier by feeling it. Whatever you have to do, there's so many different techniques and ways. Every single technique, though, if you really think about every single technique, we could talk about it all day long, but what it really comes down to is whatever you have to do to get yourself to believe it
Mhm.
is the technique, and different techniques work for different people. Sometimes you just got to say it to yourself over and over and over again. Sometimes you just got to like repeat the vision over and over and over again. Sometimes it's about journaling and writing it down. Sometimes it's about telling somebody else. Sometimes it's about imagining it this way or imagining it that way. But it really does. I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't have a podcast if there weren't so many different ways to explain how to
Right.
get somebody to believe something. But that's
One
what it
episode.
really, I mean, that's it's as simple as this: believe.
Right. Believe.
Oh, and keep that word in the back of your mind, because that's going to become an important word.
Ooh.
First time I've said that out loud.
Wow. All
But
right.
it really does. That's the thing, is it really just comes down to, you've got to believe, and whatever you got to do to make yourself believe, that is the key to life. That's the key to having everything you want. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that ultimately?
Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, when we look at the negative, absolutely. Right. If I believe that Monday morning is going to suck because I have to work, guess what? It's
Yeah.
going to suck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And everything ultimately is centered around your belief. And
Wow. Yeah.
it ultimately, yeah, like whatever you choose, and what we believe, it really is a choice, because we're choosing to think that thought over and over again. And
Mhm.
so when we realize, and it um I'm just going to say it's kind of lazy thinking, if we allow ourselves to believe anything different than what we want to
Right.
believe. It's easy sometimes, when I'm in my meditation and I'm just, needing to focus my mind on just my feeling of my sensation of my breath, right? And that's what we do in meditation. But then you start thinking about something, and it's like that you just get addicted to that
Mhm.
thought. You
Yeah.
just let yourself like, oh, this is nice to think. Let me just think about this for a little while. I don't really want to think about my, nose hairs right now.
Yeah.
And, but that's a choice. That's a choice. You're choosing to like kind of just wander off and not really meditate. So you got to come back, you got to meditate. And this is really honestly believing and you practicing a lot of assumption. In a way, it's a meditation. It's an all day meditation. You're
All day
meditating
meditation. Yeah.
that I have this thing. I have this thing. I am this thing. I am the person who's in alignment with this thing. And, eventually you believe it. It's just got to happen.
And it's a great, because it's kind of like the more that you believe it, the more you start to achieve it, and then it sort of gives you more supporting evidence.
Yes.
Right. So it does get
Yes.
easier over time, once you're not, I don't know, hating Monday, at least, maybe, um,
Well, and that is so
other
true
things start happening.
too. That, and and that is something else I would say I want to speak to, when we talked about like what are some of the reasons that the mistakes that people make. I think one of the biggest mistakes also that people make is biting off more than they can chew,
Mm,
trying to get themselves to believe something that is so outlandish
mm,
that
yeah,
for them in their, like, maybe they've never even made $10,000 in their life before,
yeah,
like in a year, or maybe they're just starting to break into their online business or whatever, and they're just saying, I'm going to make $1 million this year. Well, it's like the you're just your subconscious mind is just going to reject something that is so difficult, to believe, or 10 million or 100 million or whatever it is, wherever you're at. And so, to speak to what you were saying, it's like you start achieving things, then that creates a feedback loop of, okay, whenever I put this out there, I end up achieving it. I always achieve my goals. And then that builds up that confidence, that builds up your belief system. So I do always recommend people to kind of start with things that are a little bit more believable and achievable. And
mm,
then once you've got a good record of achieving things, you're going to be able to say, well, if I could do that,
yeah,
then I could do this. I mean, I've got some pretty big goals over the next 10 years for myself, but I had to build up to creating those big goals. If I tried to take on those goals 10 years ago, when like I wasn't even a public speaker, I wasn't even an author, I didn't even have an app or know how to even begin to approach one. If I tried to think about what all the things that are on my table for the next 10 years, then I probably there would be no way I could conceive of those goals.
yeah. And I think it's great because, in an ideal world, I think what you're saying is we just believe it. We assume it's happened, boom, done. But
Boom, done.
those of
Yeah.
us who are human and mortal and can't really do that immediately, that if you can take it a little bit slower and let that evidence build up.
That's the work. That's
Mm,
the work. And the work is learning how to control your mind, learning how to control your thoughts, control your feelings, um, and working on your belief system, and changing your belief system. And that gets done little by little. It doesn't get done like all at once. I mean, unless you are like somehow or another, you're just a a special, unique person that just you can take on that belief
yeah.
without any subconscious rejection, then
Mhm.
that person could, and there's probably a few people in the world that are like that, but most humans, um, it takes work. And so, yes, I say, the law of assumption is very powerful. It's even more powerful, I'm going to say, than the law of attraction. And so I suggest people start with the law of attraction and
Mm,
work themselves up to taking on these more, if you've been at the level of, getting a lot of success already with the law of attraction, then you're ready to step up into the law of assumption. The law of attraction is like you're manifesting it, it's in progress, you're doing things to achieve it. Law of assumption is like, boom, I believe it. It's here right now in this moment.
and logically, that's what I love about this aspect of the law of assumption. Logically, it's just like with act as if. If I'm going through life assuming that I am dot dot dot, I'm going to do all those things that guy would do, and then why wouldn't I achieve those things? I mean, I almost could not achieve those things, right? I mean, it would be, if I get up every morning and go for a run and I eat healthy all day, how can I mean, it'd be almost impossible for me not to get in really good shape, right? So
Absolutely.
same thing, if whatever steps are necessary to become rich, and I guess you can study people to do that, but if you assume it and you start doing it, if I start saving money and investing money and you can't fail. How could you? You may not
Yeah.
get to 1 million, but you're going to get to 100,000 maybe or something. Like you said, you may, set those goals reasonably, but wow.
Yeah. And, even putting it on a smaller, more, realistic scale. I mean, like you wake up in the morning and you assume you're going to have a bad day
Right.
versus
Right.
you assume you're going to have a good day. Like, what kind of a day are you going to have? If you assume you're going to have a bad day, then
You
everything's going
will.
to align with that.
Right. It's
It's
so
going to change your perspective. It's going to change what you look at and what you see and the people, and even like the way that you see people interacting. I mean, it's going to come from your own, but oh, that person's being nasty, right?
right.
Even though they're neutral. And
Right.
if you're coming from the assumption of having a good day, you're going to see that same person doing the same thing, and you're going to have a completely different experience of them. You're going to say, wow, they are super nice.
It's so true. It's so easy to understand when we look at the negative side of it. It really is. It's
Mm-hmm.
so easy that if I, again, if I think Monday's going to suck, it's going to suck. No matter what,
Yeah.
I could win the lottery and I'd still be upset about something. I'll look at all the tax I have to pay now, you know? So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so
Well,
great. I love, so it's like junior college is the practical, is the law of attraction. And then we go to
yeah.
our master's degree, we're going for the law of assumption, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, just to leave our listeners with, some tips. If you are, practicing law of attraction right now, then, keep doing that and, keep practicing with, getting yourself into, alignment with your desire and your thinking. And, but, if you're ready to move into the next level of this, then, the law of assumption is about being it right now, having it right now, assuming that you are in this environment, in this energy, and just feel yourself with this already fulfilled, and live your life, live every day, live every moment as if this has already been fulfilled. And, that's going to actually zoom it to you a little faster, but it takes work to get to that point to actually buy in and believe that.
I think I like this law even more than the law of attraction.
Yeah, some people, they've just sort of like forgotten all about the law of attraction, and they've just practiced the law of assumption because it is a little bit more simple, effective, powerful. But again, it's a little bit more it's harder to get to that point where you can practice that.
Maybe the next book, Practical Law of Assumption.
That might be on the horizon. Might be another book also that's on the horizon,
All right.
with another law that I think is also equally powerful that we'll talk about in
Ooh,
another episode at some point. But
nice.
yeah, well, thank you so much um, for all of your input and hanging out with me today. And
My pleasure. It's always a good time. I'm learning a
yeah,
lot.
definitely, definitely. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Next week, we're going to be talking about some unique ways to raise your vibration. And so that'll be next week. And look forward to chatting with you about that then.
Great. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. Be sure to download my app. Also, be sure to stop by Law of Attraction Intensive so you can learn how to become a powerful manifester in 3 days at my pre-conference in Las Vegas. I look forward to seeing you there.
Nice.